It all started like any modern romance, a swipe right on Tinder. Her name was Jessica, and our connection was instant. We laughed at the same jokes, shared long conversations into the night, and everything felt perfect. For the first few months, I thought I had found someone truly special. But things began to change. Slowly, subtly at first. She became more controlling, asking where I was, who I was with, what I was doing, constantly. She'd text me 10 times in a row if I didn't respond fast enough. "I'm just worried," she would say, but the concern felt more like surveillance. Over time, I realized Jessica didn't have many friends. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying, "I don't trust people easily." I tried to be understanding, but as the weeks passed, she insisted I share my location with her 24/7. If I declined, she'd accuse me of hiding things. The breaking point came one night when I went to a bar with friends. I hadn't told her because I needed space from the constant questions. When I got home, my parents' house at the time, she was already there, waiting. She didn't say a word at first, just stared. Then, out of nowhere, she slapped me across the face. Stunned, I ended it right there. Jessica didn't take the breakup well. The next few days were a nightmare of texts. Some messages begged me to come back, promising to be better. Others were more sinister, "You'll regret this. No one leaves me." I blocked her on everything. Weeks passed. I started to feel like I was moving on, until the day I scrolled through Facebook and saw her profile. There she was, posing with some new guy, captioned, "Finally happy again." Good, I thought. Maybe she would leave me alone now. That evening, a message popped up from an unknown number: "You need to be taught a lesson in how to treat a lady." My stomach twisted. I knew it had to be him, her new boyfriend. I ignored the message, but a gnawing sense of being watched crept in. Over the following weeks, I felt eyes on me when I went to the store or walked to my car. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. Until the night someone knocked on my door. Hard. "Open up. I know you're in there. Be a man and face me." Heart pounding, I peered through the blinds. A man stood outside, face partially hidden under the porch light. And then it hit me. I'd seen him before, on Jessica's Facebook. Her new boyfriend. He didn't leave. I watched as he circled my house, trying the back door handle. My blood ran cold when I noticed the glint of something in his waistband, a gun handle. I called the police, voice shaking, describing everything I could. The minutes felt like hours. Then, red and blue lights flashed outside, and officers swarmed the yard. They found him still trying to force his way in and arrested him on the spot. Shaking, I grabbed my phone and texted Jessica, demanding to know what was going on. Her response was instant and chilling. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Stop bothering me." But I knew the truth. She knew. And I could still feel her watching. Jessica's new boyfriend was taken to jail that night, charged with attempted breaking and entering along with the illegal possession of a firearm. I finally felt like I could breathe again, thinking the nightmare was over. But I was wrong. It started subtly. My keys would go missing from the hook by the door, only to reappear in strange places days later. Important documents from my desk disappeared, and small personal items were nowhere to be found. At first, I thought I was just being forgetful or careless. Then came the notes. Anytime I started seeing someone new, they'd receive handwritten messages delivered right to their homes. "Stay away from him. He's already taken." One girl, Lauren, even showed me a picture of a heart drawn in red ink at the bottom of the note with the initials, JL, scrawled beside it. Jessica Lynn. It was as if she knew every move I made, every person I spoke to. I became paranoid, checking my locks multiple times before bed. Then, late one night, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of someone trying my back door handle. When I rushed to check, no one was there, but muddy footprints were left behind. I started piecing it together. Jessica's new boyfriend was behind bars, yet the harassment continued, even escalating. I knew it had to be her. So, I confronted her. I found her near the coffee shop where we first met, standing outside smoking, as if waiting for me. When she saw me approach, her face shifted, half smile, half smirk, like she'd been expecting this moment. "I know it's you, Jessica," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "The notes, the break-ins, scaring the women I meet, it's you." She blinked, feigning innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe you're just imagining things." I wanted to scream, but I left, knowing there was no reasoning with her. That night, things escalated. Jessica wanted to get her own back because I did not want to be in a relationship with her. I was getting ready for work the next morning. I had just turned on the coffee machine when my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Collins, knocked on my door, her face pale. "You need to see something," she said, holding up her phone. My security camera caught it. The footage showed Jessica crouching by my car in the dead of night, a knife in her hand as she sliced through something beneath the vehicle. My brake lines. Cold dread spread through me. If Mrs. Collins hadn't caught her, I could have died on my way to work. I called the police immediately, showing them the footage. Jessica was arrested that afternoon. As they cuffed her, she turned back to face me. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I saw it, a chilling, twisted grin. Then she whispered just loud enough for me to hear. "This isn't over." Jessica had only served 6 months in jail, barely a slap on the wrist for what she had done. The day she was released, a police officer came by my house to notify me. "We thought you'd want to know, considering the history," he said, handing me a card with a direct line to his department should anything suspicious occur. I felt uneasy but tried to shake it off. Jessica couldn't possibly come after me again. Or so I thought. The very next morning, a parcel arrived at my doorstep. I hadn't ordered anything, and the plain brown box with no return address set me on edge. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. Inside were photographs of Kelly and me, at our homes, our workplaces, even during a recent dinner date. Every image was stalker-level close, and tucked beneath them was a note in scratchy handwriting. "If you don't want anything to happen, bring £10,000 to the old warehouse on Crane Street by midnight. No police. No games." My hands trembled as I showed Kelly the pictures. She was terrified but agreed we needed to stay calm and call the authorities. Despite our fears, I knew I had to confront this head-on. The police promised to monitor the situation, but I couldn't just sit back and wait. That night, I went to the old warehouse. The place was abandoned, damp, and smelled of mildew. Rusted machinery loomed like shadows in the dim light from the cracked windows. I waited, heart pounding, but no one showed. After an hour, I turned back toward my car. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was Kelly, her voice trembling. "I've just been robbed. Someone broke into the apartment." "What? Are you okay? Did you see who it was?" I asked, panic rising. She sniffled. "They covered their face. But I think it was a woman." And when we struggled, her shirt lifted a bit. I saw a tattoo, praying hands on her side. I felt my stomach drop. Jessica. It had to be her. We called the police immediately, but Jessica had already vanished by the time they arrived. They took statements, dusted for fingerprints, but nothing came back conclusive. She was careful. Too careful. Days passed, but the feeling of being watched only intensified. Kelly stopped staying at her apartment and stayed at mine, too scared to be alone. I knew Jessica was behind all of it, but without solid evidence, the authorities were limited in what they could do. Then, one evening, I noticed small items missing from my home: personal keepsakes, an old watch, a framed photo of my family. It wasn't random. It was as if Jessica was leaving clues, marking her territory. The final straw came when Kelly found a handwritten note tucked under her car's windshield wiper. "Stay away from him, Kelly, you've been warned. He's mine." That night, I confronted Jessica. I tracked her down to a dingy apartment she'd rented on the outskirts of town. When she opened the door, the mask she'd worn for so long slipped, her eyes were wild, unhinged. "I know what you've been doing, Jessica. Stay away from us, or I swear." She cut me off with a chilling smile. "Or what? What are you going to do? You can't prove anything." She said stop being stupid and asked if I wanted to come inside for old time's sake. I said no thank you, I am 100% happy with Kelly. I could see that Jessica did not like my answer, and she said well you better run along back to her. Something about the way she said it sent chills down my body. Weeks had passed without a sign of Jessica, but the tension never fully left. Kelly and I had taken every precaution, security cameras, changed routines, but deep down, I knew Jessica was out there, watching. One chilly Monday morning, everything nearly fell apart. Kelly was on her way to work, walking her usual route to the train station just after sunrise. She told me later how she noticed someone following her, close, too close. At first, she brushed it off. It was a busy morning, and people were always rushing to catch the early trains. But when she turned down a quieter street near the parking lot, he struck. A man in a black hoodie grabbed her from behind, trying to drag her toward a white van parked awkwardly at the curb. Kelly fought back, kicking, thrashing, screaming. Loud enough to echo across the block. A nearby jogger heard her. Then a shopkeeper. Within seconds, people were rushing over. The kidnapper panicked, dropping Kelly and sprinting toward the van. The tires screeched as the driver sped off before anyone could get a clear look at his face. Kelly was shaken, but unharmed. And when she called me, her voice trembling as she explained what had happened, I knew exactly who was behind it. Jessica. The police took her statement, but without a clear ID on the man, they couldn't make an arrest. They assured us they were increasing patrols and keeping an eye on our home, but it wasn't enough. Later that night, while reviewing our security footage, I noticed something chilling. A figure lurking near the end of our street. The same black hoodie. Jessica was still pulling the strings. And this time, I was determined to stop her. Weeks passed after the incident, but the tension never eased. Kelly was shaken but strong, determined not to let Jessica's shadow linger over our lives. We changed our locks, installed security cameras, and stayed vigilant. The police followed up on our report, but with no fingerprints, no security footage, and the kidnapper long gone, the investigation hit a dead end. Jessica had vanished completely, no social media activity, no sightings, nothing. But deep down, I knew she wasn't finished. One morning, a plain white envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. My heart raced as I studied it. Kelly, in our driveway, taken just the night before. Scrawled across the bottom in red ink were the words, "Miss me." I knew then that Jessica was still watching. Kelly and I went straight to the police again, but their response was frustrating. No direct threats. "We'll increase patrols in your area, but keep alert." I could see they didn't take it as seriously as they should have. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt amplified. Around 3 a.m., the motion sensor outside triggered. I rushed to the window. A figure stood at the edge of the yard. A man. Hooded. Watching. I shouted, grabbing my phone to call the police, but the figure retreated into the darkness before they arrived. The next morning, another envelope. This time, it was a USB drive. Against my better judgment, I plugged it into my laptop. A video played, grainy, shaky footage. It was Jessica. Her face pale, eyes wide with unhinged intensity. She whispered. "You stole everything from me. I just wanted us to be happy. But since you chose her, I'll make you feel the pain you left me with." The video cut off. Kelly and I knew we couldn't just wait for Jessica's next move. I hired a private investigator, hoping to trace any last connection to her. Weeks passed with no new incidents, and we began to relax. Maybe Jessica had finally disappeared for good. Until one night. I woke up to the smell of smoke. A thick haze filled the hallway. Fire alarms screamed. The front door was blocked, the flames licking up the walls. Kelly and I barely made it out through the back door. When the fire was finally extinguished, the fire chief approached us grimly. It was arson. Accelerant was used on the front door and living room windows. No more doubt. Jessica was escalating. But she made one mistake. The private investigator finally found her. She had rented a cabin just 20 miles out of town under a fake name. The police surrounded the cabin that night. Jessica didn't go quietly. When they broke in, she was holding a lighter, ready to set the cabin ablaze. But it was over. They arrested her, and this time, there would be no short sentence. But even now, as I tell this story, a part of me still wonders. Will Jessica ever truly be gone? Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.